Good morning. Rick Manning from Americans for Limited Government. Good morning. Thanks very much for talking with us. Is there anything we should be, aware of, concerned about, or even interested in? Who owns Twitter?
I think it is important, but it's we're now in a stock purchase battle, and I don't think anybody really understands that fully. What I do know is the most amazing thing that's come out is that the members of the board of directors of Twitter own virtually no stock. And I don't know how a board actually protects shareholder interests when they don't have a shareholder interest. And it just shows that concerns that Twitter was nothing more than a political censorship tool is actually borne out by the board and its lack of financial interest in the company.
Me neither. It'll be interesting to see. And I have personally I guess, a little less interest because I am not a tweeter on Twitter. I don't really care what movie stars is giving us advice about anything, or, none of that is of interest to me. And, of course, Donald Trump's favorite thing is to send out tweets, and I don't care about that either, not even when he was president, and, none of that. I was interested briefly in the new poll, and I saw this on a clip from CNN talking about the really, really, really bad poll numbers. Biden now with a lower approval rating than Trump had back when he was the lowest approved president in history, and Biden has surpassed that low mark. Are Democrats paying any attention at all in D.C., or are they just trudging ahead with what they want to get done, regardless of what the American people want?
Democrats are paying attention, and they know that the time that they're going to have consolidated power is very short, and they're attempting to maximize that time. So, they're doing everything they can to put as many Biden judges on the bench as possible and to pass as many try to pass as much as they can. And that's and the fact of the matter is they have problems in their own conference, and only having, 50, not having 53, 54, they need to be unanimous. And that's, and so, they have a problem, just like the Republicans have a problem when they only have 51, 52, and they need to, and they've got to get everybody on their side of the aisle.
Right.
It's just very difficult to do.
Do you suppose that if the Republicans, in fact, do take control in D.C., will the red pen come out like it did when Biden took office, and we'll just start Xing off all of the Democrat initiatives that were in place when the Republican president lost? The Democrat president comes in and says, X that, X that, X that. Is that the world we live in now? Whoever's in charge first ends everybody else's program or the other side's program, regardless of whether it's helpful or popular or anything. Just go.
Well, it's my hope that what the legislature will do is start using the power of the purse to set priorities for the Biden administration. And that's one of the ways they can deal with the border crisis and the like, is essentially tell the Biden administration how they must spend the money. And rather than just leaving it up to them to make a decision, which is how they typically do it, hopefully when the Republicans have control of the power of the pen, they will be able to, or power of the purse, they will be able to do that. They will be willing to do that. And I'm not betting on it, but, that's certainly what I'm encouraging.
Is it, I want to leave time for Ukraine-Russia, but I read an article recently about Frank James, the guy who on the subway tried to shoot and blow up a bunch of people, and the fact that the president responds by enacting a ghost gun legislation because that'll be the problem. No words whatsoever about the fact that Frank James had been arrested 9 times previously back in the 90s on issues just like or very similar to this one, and not even prosecuted because of attorneys general in those states where he committed those crimes. Really?
Yeah, it's hard to believe, but yeah, he had 9 arrests in New York City. He had another arrest that we know about across the river in New Jersey. The one in New Jersey was making terrorist threats, which he doesn't get prosecuted on. Somehow the Essex County prosecutor doesn't think that's important. And then they complained because he went off and bought a gun. Well, you know what? prosecute criminals, convict criminals, and then they can't buy a gun.
Right.
Don't just arrest them and then say, gee, that should be enough. I mean, if they're guilty of something,
arrest them, prosecute
them.
Then his name is on a list. How come he's not on a list? That's because he wasn't prosecuted for any of these horrible crimes previously, and he was available to continue.
The bigger issue on that, and you guys have faced that in Wisconsin with some local elections, but prosecutors who don't prosecute criminals has become a pretty big problem and across the nation, and I think America's waking up to that problem.
Russia, Ukraine. Do you think? What's your take on boots on the ground? U.S. boots on the ground. At least one Democrat said that recently. What's your take?
I don't think there is a single drop of American blood that should be spilled in Ukraine. If Germany or Poland or any of the European countries want to do that, then that is their prerogative. But it is not. I do not believe the United States should be devoting troops. I don't have a problem with providing materiel. But boots on the ground, I think, is a catastrophic mistake.
I heard from, I think it was Volodymyr himself, who said, you're continuing to supply us with material that is simply going to make our death more prolonged and painful. You're not giving us what we need to win this war. Is that the case? Is Ukraine destined to lose? It's just a matter of time before everyone is killed and everything is blown up?
Well, Russia certainly has the capacity to blow up every building in Ukraine and have plenty of more bombs left for the rest of the world. So they certainly have that capacity. The question becomes, at some point, Russia has to take a look and say, is it worth, taking over a country that is essentially decimated, and more like annihilated? Decimated, it's only 1 in 10, totally annihilated. And there's very little value to Russia to do that. They want the ports. They want Mariupol because it's a key port city on the Sea of Azov. They want to go down and take Odessa because that's a key port city as well. And by controlling those ports, they control the flow of Ukraine wheat that goes out, that gets shipped out through the Black Sea. So so in some respects, the fight for the ports is the fight to control the Ukrainian wheat.
Right. Well, if they blow up those two cities, all they will have is a dip in the ocean. There won't be a port to bring a boat or to ship out a boat because it's all been blown up.
Yeah, well, that's the net effect. I don't know that I haven't seen any reports that they're actually going after the port themselves. They're going after the buildings. They're
everything
going
around it.
Outside the port area, but maybe leaving the actual physical port intact. I haven't seen that. Yeah. Ukraine doesn't have a navy per se. So the port doesn't have any value from a naval perspective for Ukraine. It's an export. It's a place to export wheat. A lot of rail lines run there because of the wheat harvest, and and so I don't know. I think Russia's trying to keep that intact. Secondly, and significantly, that creates a land bridge. They take that area and creates a land bridge between Crimea and Russia, which allows a lot of other things to happen in terms of unleashing troops who are currently in Crimea. Right. And it's kind of like hitting a key on a video game, and then it unlocks some extra things. And
lots more to talk about.
The land bridge to Crimea is a big deal to Russia.